So now that Diversity Dialogue with two former guests, Joshua Brown, the CISO at H&R Block, and Carrick Stanwick, who is Director of InfoSec at Wave HQ. Welcome, Carrick. Welcome, Joshua.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
So let's talk about a subject that I know is close to your heart, and this was something that happened inside of H&R Block, and this is the topic of, hey, you have to be a change agent, but sometimes being the change agent is more direct and more applicable if you've actually been in those shoes yourself, right? And again, going back to Alexander's whole hiring process and the fact that he's doing so well right now at H&R Block was thanks to you, Carrick, right? But again, that happened because you were able to relate to Alexander in a way that maybe the average person is not able to. So talk a little bit about that whole experience, and then we can dig a little deeper into if people are not part of a community, haven't experienced exclusion, how do they become a change agent?
I mean, I think it comes down to having that education, right? If you think about it historically, this has all been kind of off topics. Nobody's really been comfortable talking about their own challenges, whether it was with race or gender, or, even in my case, being neurodivergent, right? That's always been kind of a taboo topic. People are uncomfortable. It's not a comfortable conversation. And because of that, a lot of people avoid it. I think once I got to a certain point in my own life where I realized, this isn't really a disability. Sure, I have some challenges that come with it, but I also have a lot of benefits that come with this, right? That I kind of changed my mindset. We're just different kind of people. And everybody, regardless of where your experiences come from, bring that with them. So when I have the opportunity to take somebody like, Alex or any number of other people who have been on my teams that are in the same boat, to help them process and maybe see their own journey as less of one of disability, because I hate seeing that on job applications, right? I hate seeing that, hey, are you autistic? That automatically makes you disabled. No, I don't agree with that. Just because we see the world differently doesn't make you inherently disabled. But until we start talking about that and building a culture where we're comfortable talking about that, it's going to be really hard to educate people. And so I guess my point of that is those of us, and this is why I made a post a little while ago, and I put my tagline, right? Neurodivergent. Why? Because I want to be a resource for people to realize that this isn't something you hide necessarily, right? Sure, I'm different, right? I approach things differently, but that's a good thing. I've decided, right? And I think, having worked for Josh actually for the past couple of years prior to my stint at Wave, maybe you have some really good insight on that.
Yeah, Carrick, I think, what I would say here is that, well, two things. First off, and we've talked about this numerous times, but we have to stop gatekeeping as part of the process of who we even consider for positions, right? And so we have to take a fresh look at our job descriptions when they go out there and make sure that they are not, they're not putting requirements in place that would automatically eliminate some of the very people that we're trying to attract through our D&I, endeavors. And the second one, I think, and, for people leaders, there's jokes sometimes about management, right? That you manage because you can't hack the engineering work anymore, right? And I think there's certainly some truth to some people, that go down that path, right? But to be a good leader, or even better, a great leader, you have to have individual relationships with each and every employee. You have to understand, you can't treat them all the same. If you want to get excellent results, you have to treat people the way they need to be treated. And that takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of commitment, and it takes a lot of empathy and compassion. And so learning that one employee thinks about things in a certain way and works in a certain way and is highly effective and efficient working that way, that's key to unlocking the potential of an entire team. So, I think it's a great question, and I don't think there's an easy answer. But I think as we bring more atypical employees into the team and into the fold, the situation sort of takes care of itself in terms of getting to know your fellow employees as individuals, as people, with all the superpowers they bring to the table, and then getting that team to gel and work together, and that sort of momentum kind of breeds further momentum, I think.
I would double down on that. Success breeds success. I mean, my first SOC, no women, sucked, because there's a different perspective that comes with women, right? Very little diversity, a lot more when I was at Block, right?
Mhm.
So when you have success, whether it's because you're leveraging, you know, the traditional diversity types, or the more, I guess, as people talk more and more about diversity of thought, people like, that are different socioeconomic status. We don't ever talk about that. If you grow up on the streets and you're street smart, what can you bring to a group of people that many of which probably grew up in a middle or upper class, neighborhood? Totally different approach to problem solving, right? What if you grew up on the spectrum, right? Again, totally different approach in life challenges. We have to talk about that, but the best way to do that is to have success that we can then go and sell.
So, Karek, I want to double down on, you mentioned success, but I want to also talk about something that you had talked about, and this is going back to Shaylin Hacker, who was an intern, right? And you talked about the fact that 1 week into her internship, her manager actually was questioning whether this was the right thing to do, right? So while there was success at the end, I think we should also talk about the fact that there are going to be difficult self-questioning. Am I doing the right thing? Are we off on a tangent over here? And let people know, yeah, there are going to be challenges. There is going to be friction, but the outcome is going to be so much more positive. Let's talk a little bit about that journeying that we don't talk about enough, about putting a magnifying glass and saying, yes, this is not going to be easy, but we still got to do it because of these reasons.
I'll give a good example. So I'm looking for a security engineer at Waiver. I was when I first started, right? And we interviewed a lot of people, and there were a couple of candidates towards the end that we were discussing. One significantly more junior and less traditional than the other. And nobody has started yet, and I don't want to provide names at this point, but at some point I'll put a post about it. When I talked to the team, right, we had one that was far more experienced, would have provided more immediate value. But the question was, a year from now, who's the better person? A year from now, who do we get the most value from? And it was unanimous. In that kind of situation, right, it takes a little bit longer outlook, but you get way more value for what you are actually putting your time into. And with this current market, with the salaries that we're seeing, especially in the cybersecurity realm, you can't always go for the best, right? You have to have that development pipeline to build. So to build, you have to get a different type of education, not one of who can fill my position as is and provide value today, but who can give me the quickest time to value that will also provide the maximum value, say a year from now or 2 years from now. You're going to get a lot more loyalty at a lot less cost, and hopefully have a brand opportunity to really bring these people up and out. Because if H&R Block or Wave becomes the place everybody wants to go to work, because other companies recognize that people coming out of those companies are awesome and well-rounded and have that education, well, now everybody that's worth anything wants to come work for us.